Hello and a very good evening to one and all present here. A very warm welcome to this absolutely wonderful, beautiful, and auspicious day that brings together so many special people like you. Today, on this day, I, Ms. Dipti Mote, would like to welcome you all from the bottom of my heart. Please welcome our judge for this evening, Ms. Miki Baura, a professor of business communication to engineering students and research scholar of Mumbai University. She is a professor in the Dalanka Institution of Technology, a very kind-hearted, soft-spoken, caring person. She always inspires and motivates students to do things outside our comfort zone and encourages to take part in extracurricular activities so that the professional personality of a student can be built. We gladly welcome you, ma'am, and thank you for being a part with us today. A very happy Republic Day to all of you. This year, we are celebrating 72nd Republic Day as it prepares a memorable date on which the Constitution of India came into effect. After attaining independence from the British rule, the new constitution was enrolled by the drafting committee under the guidance of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. The Indian constitution came into effect on 26 January 1950, which declared India's occurrence as an independent. The importance of this Indian National Congress revealed Purna Swaraj, which means the declaration of India's independence from the colonial rule. We are celebrating 72nd independence this year. So, I would like to explain the rules for this competition. You can speak either in Hindi or in English, but not in both the languages. The second rule, timing for a single participant is max to max 4 minutes. And you should keep your videos on until you speak. So now, let's call upon our first contestant. Abhishek Tripathi.
Am I audible and visible to you? One second. Okay, so is there any particular topic or I can speak on any topic?
Any topic which you would like.
Good morning to everyone assembled here. Good morning to everyone assembled here. I would like to speak on the topic Republic of India. What does Republic means for all of India? As a nation which encompasses very diversity in a country where there is a trend going on for the homogenization of each and every culture, and there is a trend of incarnating everyone into a singleness, I would like to debate and present and relocate on the topic India and how diverse that India is. India, how diverse that India is, can be seen from the beautiness of its language, its culture, its oratory, its perfect sizing population, and its ardent constitution, where a special emphasis is seeing the idea of India. It should be particularly considered that idea of any nation changes from time to time because India is a nation, but India is always going to be a nation in making. First, we were under the under the suppression from colonial states. Then we got a wonderful independence, and after that, many challenges which our governments and our nation faced, and still we are fighting with some of those who are creating problems for us. Now coming to the idea of India. What is idea of India? Idea of India is equality, equity, sustainability for all. Idea of India is constitutional safeguards for minorities and majorities at the same time. Idea of India is respecting the constitution of India. Idea of India is respecting the women's and other communities of India. Idea of India is calling Sarojini Naidu the mother of India, while also calling Gandhi the father of India. A special need to be placed on the emphasis of many differences. It's a country, so it is bound that there will be many differences, starting from differences of Punjab, starting from the differences of Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Assam, particularly Assam, because it has been a central problem, and coming through the various problems, particularly the problems of minority versus majority clash, problem of linguistic minority versus linguistic majority, problems of religious majority minority executions. It is a country which needs to be safeguarded, and it is a country which needs to be safeguarded from millions of those who have not participated in its freedom struggle, and it needs to be safeguarded from those who under the aegis of jingoism are trying to place some of those who are patriots. Now coming to what is core burden of India, what is core essence of India? Core essence of India is secularism. Secularism simply means in Western concept that there would be a separation between church and state. But for Indian context, we have a separate definition of secularism, which means principal distance. State will have a principal distance with religion, but when it is forced to act on behalf of minorities, it will come under the aegis of religion and try to reform. Now coming to various other differences of India and what constitutes India into such a beautiful nation that for it Max Muller said, India is mother of civilization. It's our ardent peace and believe in non-violence. And let us respect that man called Gandhi and that man who was once recommended by Churchill to be tied by a tree and an elephant once passed from his body. I respect that man, and let us all respect that man in this Republic Day and remember those who fought for this nation and particularly those who remains unsung, like Gopinath Bordoloi, the Assamese first chief minister who got recent Bharat Ratna, remembering remembering Sarojini Naidu, remembering Gandhi, and yet denouncing those who killed that great man. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Abhishek. It was a misunderstanding. We have three topics given for our elocution competition today. That is India 2021 Challenges and Opportunities. The second topic was Towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, and the third was National Education Policy through the lens of a college student. I hope the next participants are going to speak about these three topics only. Sorry for the misunderstanding, Abhishek. So now I would like to call our next participant, Ms. Priyanka Kulkarni.
Speak again,
Sorry?
ma'am. It's not my fault because I have been told that I can speak on any topic. If there are three topics, then I should be given a chance to speak on any one topic. Otherwise, it
Yes,
would be
yes.
injustice to me, ma'am.
Yes, so I told it was a misunderstanding. Sorry.
So I should start once again.
Abhishek, I guess you will be graded on this topic. It's for the further participants.
It is to
Dipti, can I start now?
Yes, Priyanka, you can start.
Okay. So am I properly visible and audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Dipti. I'll begin. India should now come out of the phase of command and control and rather should now move into the phase of plug and play, said our Prime Minister Shri Modi ji on 15th of August the last year. A very good evening to everyone, to the esteemed guest, the judges, and my fellow competitors. I am Ms. Priyanka Kulkarni, student of Vidyalankar Institute of Technology. So today I am going to present my views on the topic Atmanirbhar Bharat. So being towards Atmanirbhar Bharat has been a concept which has been in rounds these days. The real saga of Atmanirbhar Bharat began on the day when our Prime Minister announced from the fortress of the Red Fort that we have to move towards Atmanirbhar Bharat in coming days. The wave of discarding products from China began in our country. It became a huge misconception of the people that moving towards Atmanirbhar Bharat just means that we have to discard the products which people are used to buy from China. But later, it was cleared by the ministry that we have to lessen up our burden over the imports which we have from other countries, and rather move towards a phase where India starts manufacturing its own products and starts promoting them and using them themselves. You all know Gandhiji has produced the idea of self-dependency years back. And now, when we all rely upon the ideas led by Gandhiji from the days when he proposed them, and now if we are not following it, that doesn't make any sense. So, moving towards Atmanirbhar Bharat has been very integral step for everybody of us. India has potential to do things. Don't you all believe so? India has the potential. If the things are possible to be made in India, let's make them in India. Why do we have to rely on other countries in order to satisfy our needs and requirements? Aren't we able to do that ourselves? Don't our hands and minds have the power to manufacture them in our own country? I'll present before you a few cases, and those particular cases will instill you with a lot of pride and honor regarding our country. The researchers in our country have manufactured the COVID vaccine, Covishield and Covaxin. You all know about that. The vaccination drive has begun in our country. But do you all know that yesterday our country became the world's first country to give 1 million doses to the people? The localized vaccine, and first country to achieve the goal of 1 million vaccination. Ain't it a success for us, guys? So now, do you all know that this vaccine was given to countries like Bhutan, like Nepal, Bangladesh at free of cost? They were not charged even a penny to provide these vaccines to these countries. And India did it because of its policy of brotherhood with the nations. The Brazilian Prime Minister himself congratulated our country and literally posted a picture on internet where India was shown like there was a picture of Lord Hanuman, and India's map was there in the background. It was shown that we have provided the Sanjeevani booty to the countries. So that's what the image of India is. And there is why I want to stress upon the point that we can manufacture things, and there is a global market. We need to tap that potential. Companies like Tesla have approached India. The huge round of success for everybody of us, people in automobile industry, artificial intelligence industry, have a lot of scope into these fields. Now, when such companies are coming to India, we have a scope to empower ourselves on the path of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Companies like Boat and Navy, which are Indian-made, Indian soil companies who manufacture like speakers, Bluetooth speakers, mics, airports, etc., are gaining a lot of momentum in the country. They are gaining a lot of popularity. So such more countries should come up and literally such more companies should come up and try to establish themselves. We gave us a word for local for vocal. We all have literally resolved to move towards local for vocal, but why aren't we becoming? It's not that if those things are very costly or they are like out of our budget, they are quite expensive. It's not that the case. If we see the market for opting local things is not that expensive. It is affordable, but people aren't moving towards it because it's a misconception in their minds that imported goods are cheaper than what it is being made in Indian soil. So this misconception has to be ruled out from the nation. More jobs will come to India when we literally try towards moving to Atmanirbhar Bharat. We can attract more foreign direct investment and more foreign companies to the country if we really try to establish more such companies in India. We can create a huge market in India if we try to make up such products in our country. So, since we have been so instrumental towards being vocal for local, I literally believe that we all will come together and just make this concept a success. Why can't we make India a superpower? Let's make India to have a veto in such things. Let's make India a superpower in science and technology, development and progress. I believe we all will move towards such path ahead. Now, just I want to say that let's opt for Indian things. Let's promote them, profess them, and make sure that we ourselves use them, because saying things doesn't impact, but doing things impact very well. Actions speak more than words, right? So on this Republic Day, I believe that we all respect the Constitution, we all respect secularity, and we all respect the dream of India to move towards progress and development. Wish you all a very happy Republic Day, and I'll end my words here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priyanka. And yes, you are right. India is marching toward the independent India, and we will opt for Swadeshi things. So now let's call upon our next participant, Mahdi Imam Jafar Ali Layakali. Our next participant is Mahdi Imam Jafar Ali Layakali. I think there might be a network issue. We must move forward. So I call upon Akshay Yadav.
Yeah, hello everyone. Am I audible and visible to you guys?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So a very good evening to one and all present here. My name is Akshay Kumar Yadav, and my topic for today is India 2021, the challenges and opportunities which we are gonna have in this year 2021. So basically, I have segregated my topic, my whole speech, I should say, in a few topics. First one would be it compromises of women in judiciary. Second is the voting rights for the NRIs, and the second part would be of the international relations or the international issues which we are gonna face in this financial. It's very difficult for me to cover all the aspects of a country, so I'll be dealing with these two only. So in the international one, I'll be talking about three topics: soft power diplomacy, the Indian Ocean region, and the Chabahar port, which is being in Iran. So coming down to the women in judiciary, the Attorney General of India has raised an issue that raised an issue, or I should say, an event has been taken place in the state of Madhya Pradesh that a sexual harassed victim has been made to compromise that on the thing that she can get a rakhi tied on the hand of the accused, and he got the bail. So basically, the thing is, these kind of practices should not be promoted or supported in this era of democracy, where we have judges who are very well qualified, which has the logic, which has a mindset, I should say. So as a part to this, the Attorney General advised ourselves that our country that we should increase the number of judges in the Supreme Court, in the High Courts, and in the lower courts also, the number of women in these courts. You will be surprised to know that in Supreme Courts, we only have two female judges, basically, of really that compromises of less than around 2% of that particular capacity, I should say. So I would say that what is the reason behind all this? First one is the irregularities in this job, in this litigation job, in which there's no perfect salaries. In this, there is an irregularity. So a female who is not having constant flow of income will not be able to sustain all this. Secondly, lack of maternity leaves in this profession. Thirdly, I would also like to talk about the figures in the High Court. In the High Court, we are only having 20 around I'm not sure, it is around 27% of the total vacancies are for women. So the advised the parliamentary committees and also the Attorney General has got some few guidelines for the government to increase this capacity for the women, so that the cases related to such as rape, sexual harassment, and molestation can be dealt by a female judge very properly. Firstly, they have said that there should be a female reservation in this particular thing, and also written examination should be there. And also these leaves the maternity leave should be increased. Coming down to my second subtopic, that is voting rights for the NRIs, that is a non-residents of India. It is being proposed by the Election Commission that though the Indians which are not living in the Indian subcontinent should have the voting right. They do have right now, but the process is very complex, and is not reliable for a long term, right? So ballot things, that international level postal ballot things, in which a particular guy will be sent to every country. A guy will be there from the embassies or the high commissions in those countries, which will be taking down these votes basically, and all of them who are the voters should compromise or should contact them before 5 days before, 5 days after the notification of the election. And in this way, I believe that they're making a very good step, so that the non-residents of India should also be able to vote in the elections. And now coming down to the second topic, that is the international level things.
Akshay, time
Yes.
is up. Time is up.
Time is up.
You can conclude.
Okay, so on this day and on this auspicious day, I would just like to say that we all should come together and tackle all these things and the challenges and the opportunities which we are gonna have in this financial year. And that's all. Thank you very much, and happy Republic Day to everyone.
Thank you, Akshay. Our next participant is Homesh Sarwan. Homesh Sarwan. We can move to the next. Aditya Agarwal. Abhimanyu Chopra. Nimish Pathak. Nimisha Pathak. Milan Anugrah Paul.
Yes, I'm here. Am
Okay,
I
you may start.
audible? Am I clear to you?
Yes, you are audible.
Hello, I am Nimisha. Am I audible? I believe I was before. There were some issues on my end.
Yes, sure, Nimisha. I guess you can go ahead.
Yeah. So maybe after Milan, I can start.
Okay, fine. Organizers, may I?
Yes, sure.
A very good evening to one and all present here, acknowledging our honorable judges as well. First of all, a happy Republic Day to one and all. Changing our face can change nothing, but facing our change can change everything. Words by the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi. And yes, change is the only constant. This is Milan Anugrah Paul to speak on the topic India 2021 Challenges to Opportunities. The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the global world, and India is not an exception. India having 17.7% of the total population in the world, the people in India has been affected, and a drastic change could be seen in each and every sector of and walks of life in India. Let me focus on the major sectors, and the first one being the health sector. Well, there was a drastic change in the health sector as the patients going to the hospitals were reduced and a minimum number of patients were encouraged by the healthcare units and the hospitals. Well, this could be seen as a challenge to the people of India initially. But as we look at the broader picture, we could see this is actually an opportunity and a boon. Because at this very moment, going to a hospital, consulting a doctor there is a very risky factor. And through this, our health sector and our health department is compelled to fasten the growth, to fasten the development and the intervention of the technology into the health sector, and to bring about a good change through which the health sector facilities could be possible and be available to each and every citizen of India through their mobile phones with the help of the developing technology. And yes, moving on, 3.5% of GDP is actually allocated according to the budget allocation of the Indian government in the current scenario. But as we go further, according to the words by our economic and finance leaders, we can understand that 5% of the GDP could be allocated according to the budget allocation in this very year to develop, to revise and to develop the health institution and other healthcare units, which is actually a boon at this very moment. Actually, for 17.7 billion people, it is necessary that we don't have sufficient healthcare units in India, and that is a very concerned issue to ponder upon. Moving on, let me focus on the educational sector, where there was a paradigm shift, not just in terms of resources or content, but also in terms of mode, because the offline classes had a very drastic change to the online classes. Well, the whiteboards were replaced by tablet screens. The offline class interactions were shifted to the online interactions, the virtual meetings, and so on. And yes, a student's psychological and mental health is also being affected due to this. But apart from the contagious disease, the COVID pandemic, a lot of other various contagious diseases of their spread could be decreased to a certain extent. And not just that, the travel cost of students and a lot more problems could be solved. If we are looking at a positive, through a positive lens at this issue, we could see that, for instance, a child from Kenya could access to a great course, a professional course by a professor in USA, which is actually a boon of online education. And not just in terms of resources, but also in terms of other helping personal assistance, online mode of education has given a lot of contribution at this very moment. Moving on, we could see a drastic change, a gradual decrease in terms of the income that we used to get from travel and tourism. And yes, this area is being very affected at this COVID scenario, as we can see. But then due to the intervention of technology and due to the schemes and plans provided by our government as per planned for this year, we could see that travel as well as the tourism areas are being developed. And yes, with the help of international organizations like UNDP and UNICEF, we are, and also with the help of private corporates, we are being able to reach the as well as the rural areas of India. Moving on, let's focus on the media and entertainment sector. Well, this sector was drastically affected. As we all know, this is one of the entertainment sector where we could see people at home, isolated, confined, were affected badly. And yes, as now I have covered most of the topics, that challenges that we have seen during the last year, and let's turn all these challenges into opportunities in 2021. Thank you for being the patient audience. Thank you so much. I would like to conclude my words.
Thank you, Milan. And yes, difficult roads often leads to beautiful destinations. And now I would like to call Nimisha Pathak.
I hope I'm audible and visible. You may start my time in 3, 2, 1. ऑनलाइन माध्यम की सभा में उपस्थित आदरणीय निर्णायक गण, मुख्य अतिथिगण एवं मेरे प्रबुद्ध साथियों को मेरा नमस्कार एवं 72वें गणतंत्र दिवस पर बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। महोदया, मेरा विषय है राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति एक छात्र के नजरिए से। महोदय, मुझसे पहले जो साथी कह के गए हैं वो कहीं ये जो छात्र का नजरिया है टूरिज्म की बातों में उसको भूलते हुए गए हैं। हमें समझना होगा कि विषय से नहीं भटकना है और राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति पे मैं बात करूंगी। 29 जुलाई 2020 का वो ऐतिहासिक दिन जब राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति भारत में लागू होती है। जी हाँ, ऐतिहासिक इसलिए क्योंकि 34 वर्षों बाद एक नई शिक्षा नीति हमारे देश को मिलती है। अक्सर 10 से 15 सालों में नई शिक्षा नीति आ जानी चाहिए या शिक्षा नीति में बदलाव होना चाहिए, लेकिन ये शिक्षा नीति 21वीं सदी में आई है और महोदया 21वीं सदी के इस गतिमान और विकासशील बदलते समय में ये शिक्षा नीति एक छात्र के लिए समय की मांग है। महोदया, जिस शिक्षा नीति से हम और आप पढ़े हैं वो शिक्षा नीति सिर्फ मार्कशीट पे जितने अंक है उस पर हमारा आकलन होता था। ऐसा माना जाता है क्योंकि 10वीं के बाद जो पीसीएम लेगा वो इंजीनियर बनेगा, जो पीसीबी लेगा वो डॉक्टर बनेगा, और ह्यूमैनिटीज लिया है तो सिविल सर्विसेज की ही तैयारी कर रहे होंगे। महोदया, अब अगर मैं 11th में हिस्ट्री, बायोलॉजी, फिजिक्स, मैथ्स, अकाउंट्स साथ में पढ़ सकती हूँ, मैं 11वीं 12वीं से ही शोध में आगे बढ़ सकती हूँ। जो हम मानते थे कि जो पीएचडी कर रहा है वही रिसर्च पेपर लिख सकता है, ऐसा अब नहीं होगा। महोदय, जिस तरीके से ये शिक्षा नीति बनी है वो भी बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है। 2014 में एनडीए सरकार के मैनिफेस्टो में शिक्षा नीति का वर्णन था और तब से ये शिक्षा नीति पे काम हो रहा है और यहाँ तक कि 2019 में आम छात्रों और जनों से भी इस पर सुझाव लिए गए थे। तो जिस लोकतांत्रिक प्रणाली से शिक्षा नीति बनी है वही इस सफलता के लिए एक कदम है शिक्षा नीति का। महोदय, हमें समझना होगा कि जिस शिक्षा नीति जो प्रचलन में थी वो सिर्फ हमें एक रट्टू तोता बना रही थी, लेकिन आज हमारे सर्वांगीण विकास पर काम हो रहा है। ना सिर्फ साक्षर बनाना है बच्चों को, लेकिन हमारी बहुमुखी प्रतिभा पर भी ध्यान देना है और जो भी स्किल डेवलपमेंट का काम है उस पर भी शिक्षा नीति काम करती है। महोदय, आज हम देख रहे हैं कि वैश्वीकरण और पश्चिमीकरण के इस दौर में किस तरह हम अपनी संस्कृति, अपनी सभ्यता, अपनी भाषाओं को पीछे छोड़ते जा रहे हैं और उन्हें पुराना समझते हैं। तो नई शिक्षा नीति में कक्षा 5वीं तक हम अपनी मातृभाषा में पढ़ाई कर सकते हैं और मातृभाषा में वैज्ञानिकों ने ये प्रूव किया है कि जब हम कुछ भी मातृभाषा से पढ़ते हैं तो वो हमारे साथ ज्यादा रहता है। महोदया, ये शिक्षा नीति छात्र के सर्वांगीण विकास, समग्र विकास और एकीकृत विकास पर ध्यान देती है और ये शिक्षा प्रणाली एक भारतीयकरण वाली प्रणाली है। जिस तरीके से हम कक्षा 6वीं से कोडिंग सीख सकते हैं, वैदिक गणित, दर्शन और प्राचीन भारतीय परंपरा के साथ साथ महोदया एक दूसरा विषय है आत्मनिर्भर भी। लेकिन मेरा मानना है कि इस शिक्षा नीति से छात्रों का जिस तरीके से सशक्तिकरण होगा वो आत्मनिर्भर भारत के लिए भी बहुत ज्यादा कारगर साबित होगा, क्योंकि आज आजादी के इतने साल बाद भी जहां हम एक विकसित देश होना चाहिए, आज हम सिर्फ एक विकास की राह वाले देश है। ऐसा सोचते हैं कि हम विदेश जाएंगे पढ़ने के लिए कि विदेश की यूनिवर्सिटी ज्यादा अच्छी है। महोदय, इस शिक्षा नीति के अंतर्गत विदेशी विश्वविद्यालय भी अपने कैंपस भारत में लगा सकते हैं और जो ब्रेन ड्रेन की समस्या होती थी उस पर भी इसमें काम होगा। महोदय, एक और बात जो यहाँ पे बहुत जरूरी है वो ये है कि असमानता जो आज हमारे देश में है सरकारी और निजी विद्यालयों में वो भी कम होगी, क्योंकि सरकारी स्कूलों में भी ये सारी व्यवस्थाएं और ये सारे माध्यम जो शिक्षा नीति बताती है होंगे और आंगनवाड़ी से ही बच्चों की विकास की दौर शुरू होगी। तो ये जो पुस्तकों का बोझ अब हटके प्रतिभा का व्यवहारिक शिक्षा जो हो रही है वो होगा महोदय, और संज्ञानात्मक कौशल पर भी विकास होगा। महोदय, हमें ये समझना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है कि आज हमारे देश में ड्रॉप आउट रेशियो जो है, जो बच्चियां या बच्चे किन्हीं कारणों से छोड़ देते थे, वो ड्रॉप आउट रेशियो भी कम होगा। तो असलियत में अब हम स्वतंत्र होंगे और इस 26 जनवरी पर ये कहते हुए मुझे बहुत गर्व हो रहा है कि इस 26 जनवरी नई शिक्षा नीति और हम शिक्षा के जो बोझ से अब आजाद हो रहे हैं। मुझे सुनने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू निमिषा। आपके ये 2 शब्द सुनकर मेरे भी मन में 2 शब्द आ रहे। अशिक्षित को शिक्षा दो, अज्ञानी को ज्ञान दो, शिक्षा से ही बन सकता है मेरा भारत महान। थैंक यू। So now I would like to call Pradeep Thorat.
Yes, I am there.
Pradeep.
Yeah.
You can start.
You can start my time. 3, 2, 1, start. Okay. Education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope, and hope breeds peace. Education is one of the most powerful weapons which can be used to change the world. The world we see today, the development we see today, can't be possible without education. Education purpose is to replace an empty mind with an open mind. today I am able to communicate and share my thoughts with you all. This is possible because of my education. We are able to express ourselves because of our education. Hello everyone, a very good evening and a very Republic Day and a very happy Republic Day to everyone. I am Pradeep, a student of Vivekanand Education Society's Institute of Technology, Chembur, and I'll be speaking on the topic National Education Policy through a lens of a college student. I'm an engineering student. I'll express what do I think about the National Education Policy. But what exactly is National Education Policy? The National Policy of Education is a policy formulated by the Government of India to promote and regulate education in India. The policy covers elementary education to higher education in both rural and urban India. The first National Education Policy was promulgated by the Government of India by the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in the year 1968. The second was by Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in the year 1986. And the third by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the year 2020. The National Education Policy 2020 has been introduced at the right time to complement the process and vision of creating quality institutions, a culture of innovation, and a highly skilled workforce. It was about time that we initiated a process to transform the educational institutes in India and provide them the ability to attain a certain level that can be compared to the best in the world. This is a landmark change by the Indian government as they have replaced the 34-year-old National Policy on Education, which was framed in 1986, with the new Education Policy of 2020. The National Education Policy, which has been approved by the Union Cabinet, has made revolutionary reforms in the Indian education paradigm. There are a lot of changes made in this policy. I'll speak some of the highlights. The first is schooling is to begin from the age of 3 years. The revised policy expands the age group of mandatory schooling from 6 to 14 years to 3 to 18 years. The new system will include 12 years of schooling with 3 years of Anganwadi. The existing 10+2 structure of school curriculum will be replaced by 5+3+3+4 curricular structure corresponding to age 3 to 8, 8 to 11, 11 to 14, and 14 to years respectively. Students will have the liberty to choose the subjects they would like to study across streams. Vocational education will be introduced in the schools from class 6, and this will include internships as well. Earlier, internships were allowed only for undergraduates. We feel very proud when someone says CEO of Google is an Indian, CEO of MasterCard is an Indian, CEO of MasterCard is an Indian, CEO of Microsoft is an Indian. But isn't it unfortunate for the country because all these people studied in India and went abroad for the higher studies to serve their countries? But this Brendan scenario is going to change now because the new international institution will be constructed in India. As a student, I see a new education policy as a big one because of the point I am going to mention. The duration of the undergraduate degree will be either 3 or 4 years. Students will also be given multiple exit options within this period. College will have to grant a certificate to a student if they would like to leave after completing 1 year. An academic bank of credit will be established by the government for digitally storing academic credits earned from. It is important to note that education is a continuous process. National Education Policy has addressed the social and gender gap in the education system. The policy has stated that there is an evident gap in the representation of various social groups in education system. One says there are a lot of benefits because of new education policy. One says the national education policy is not good. Well, I believe if we have to change our society and want everyone educated, then we have to go through a lot of ups and downs. Change cannot be brought in the society in one go. There has to be something good and there has to be something negative. But we should work on converting negatives into positives. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep. Now next, I would like to call Raghav Maheshwari.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you can start. Yes, you are audible.
Okay, so I am starting. सदन में उपस्थित सभी लोगों को मेरा हार्दिक नमन और गणतंत्र दिवस की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। आज मुझे ये अवसर प्रदान किया गया है कि मैं जो राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 है उसको मैं कॉलेज छात्र की नजरिए से दूं। मैं खुद भी एक कॉलेज छात्र हूँ और काफी अच्छा लगता है कि जब हमारे लिए, जब हम जो कॉलेज छात्र हैं उनके लिए 34 वर्षों बाद कोई एक ऐसी नीति आती है कि जिससे जो भी हमारे जो एजुकेशन सिस्टम है कॉलेज का स्पेशली, उसके जो जितने भी लूप होल्स है, उसकी जितनी कमियां हैं, उसको पूरा करने की कोशिश की जाती है एक चरणबद्ध तरीके से, जिससे ना तो कॉलेज के प्रशासन पे कोई अधिक भार पड़े, ना कॉलेज के बच्चों पे अधिक भार पड़े, और इससे जो एडेप्टेबिलिटी की भी जो खूबसूरत जो पॉइंट जो यहाँ पे एनईपी में जो बात की जाती है, वो भी उसका भी पूरा ध्यान रखा जाता है। अब सबसे पहले मैं ये बता दूं कि जो इंसान होता है, इंसान का नेचर होता है कि वह कभी किसी एक चीज पे टिक कर नहीं रह सकता, चाहे वो उसकी लाइफ, चाहे वो उसके जीवन से जुड़ा कोई भी चीज हो। तो हम ये कैसे मान सकते हैं कि वह किसी एक विषय पर टिक कर रहेगा? क्या ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि कि किसी छात्र को गणित भी पसंद हो, उसको बायोलॉजी भी पसंद हो, उसको गाने में भी रुचि हो, उसको जो ड्रामेटिक्स है उसमें भी रुचि हो, उसको विभिन्न अलग अलग क्षेत्रों में रुचि हो। लेकिन जो हमारी पुरानी शिक्षा नीति थी उसमें हमको बांध दिया जाता था, हमको उसमें तीन संकाय दे दिए जाए, या तो आप विज्ञान में जाएंगे, या फिर आप वाणिज्य में जाएंगे, या फिर आप कला में जाएंगे, और एक बार जिस संकाय में आप चले गए, आप पूरी जिंदगी उसी, जो एक पतली सी गली हमको दे दी गई, आपको पूरी जिंदगी उसी में चलना है। लेकिन जब हमारी नई शिक्षा नीति आती है 2020 में, तब वो कहती है कि ये जो रिजिड सेपरेशन है डिसिप्लिन का, हम इसको तोड़ के मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी अप्रोच देंगे। अब देखिए इससे फायदा क्या होता है, जब जो हम कॉलेज के जो छात्र होते हैं, हम अपने नजरिए से बताएं तो इस समय जो हमारे जो बौद्धिक विकास है, वो सबसे, जो हमारी सोचने की क्षमता है, जो हमारी विश्लेषण करने की क्षमता है, वो इतनी ज्यादा वह बढ़ रही होती है। लेकिन जब हमको एक क्षेत्र में बांध दिया जाता है, तब वो एक तरह से जो हमारी जो क्षमता है, ये उसको बर्बाद किया जा रहा होता है। लेकिन जब हम एक से अधिक विषयों पर अपना हाथ आजमाएंगे, हम हर चीज का विश्लेषण करेंगे, तो ये कहीं ना कहीं आगे चल के जो देश की जो ह्यूमन रिसोर्स है, जो देश का जो मानव संसाधन है, उसी में फायदा देगा। अब इसके बाद बात करते हैं जो हमारे भारत देश में, अगर आप आईआईटी के छात्र हैं, अगर आप आईआईएम के छात्र हैं, तो फिर आपको समझा जाता है कि हाँ, आप जो देश की सबसे बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटी, जो देश के सबसे बड़े इंस्टीट्यूशन है, उससे पढ़कर आए हैं। लेकिन आप अगर किसी दूसरे विश्वविद्यालयों के छात्र हैं, तो आपको जो प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ है, आपको उतना महत्व नहीं दिया जाता। लेकिन अब जो नई शिक्षा नीति बात करती है कि जो आईआईटी और आईआईएम, एम्स, इन सब के जो इतर भी जो दूसरे विश्वविद्यालय हैं, उनको मेरू विश्वविद्यालय अर्थात मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी एजुकेशन एंड रिसर्च यूनिवर्सिटीज की तर्ज पर इन्हीं की आईआईटी और आईआईएम की लेवल पर खोला जाएगा, जिससे कि हर जो देश का जो राइट टू एजुकेशन है सबके लिए, और राइट टू एजुकेशन के साथ साथ राइट टू गुड एजुकेशन, ये जो हमारा एक अधिकार है, वो सबको मिलेगा, और चाहे वो किसी भी विषय विशेष का ही क्यों ना छात्र हो। अब इसके बाद जो हमारी पुरानी व्यवस्था थी कॉलेज छात्रों के लिए, उसमें हमको खुद नहीं पता होता था हम किस विश्वविद्यालय में पढ़ रहे हैं। कोई विश्वविद्यालय डीम्ड होता था, कोई अफिलिएटिंग होता था, कोई अफिलिएटिंग टेक्निकल होता था, कोई यूनिटरी होता था। नई शिक्षा नीति में इन सबको खत्म करके सिर्फ एक जो अम्ब्रेला है उसके अंडर ले आया गया है, और ये सब अब विश्वविद्यालय कहलाएंगे, जिनका जो स्टैंडर्ड है, वो जो पूरे साल एक अथॉरिटी के अंडर रेगुलेटरी उसके अंडर मेंटेन रहेगा, और कोशिश की जाएगी कि जो इसका स्तर है उसमें किसी प्रकार की गिरावट ना आए। जो दूसरी बात जो कॉलेज छात्रों के लिए जो अच्छी चीज है, वह है कि हमको लगता था कि हमारे नजरिए से अगर आप देखें तो हम पढ़ पा रहे हैं, ये हमारे लिए एक वरदान है कि हमने 12वीं करी और इसके बाद हमने कॉलेज में दाखिला लिया। लेकिन कुछ ऐसे बच्चे भी हैं जो 12वीं के बाद कॉलेज में नहीं पहुंच पाते थे, और इसी के कारण जो ग्रॉस एनरोलमेंट रेशियो था, वो भारत में अभी भी 26.3% के आसपास है। नई शिक्षा नीति बात करती है कि इस ग्रॉस एनरोलमेंट रेशियो को 50% कर दिया जाएगा, और ये हमारे लिए भी खुशी की बात है कि जो हमारे साथी जो अपनी जो पढ़ाई है वो पूरी नहीं कर पाते थे, जो कॉलेज में नहीं आ पाते थे, कॉलेज में दाखिला नहीं ले पाते थे, वह भी अब हमारे साथ बैठकर कॉलेज में उसी महाविद्यालय में पढ़ सकेंगे। अब इसके बाद देखिए एक बात है, जो हमारे भारत में जो एग्जिस्टिंग व्यवस्था है, जो अभी एग्जिस्टिंग व्यवस्था है, उसमें क्या होता है, उसमें सिर्फ विश्वविद्यालय है। आपको नहीं पता कि आपका विश्वविद्यालय क्या पढ़ा रहा है। आपका विश्वविद्यालय आपको सब चीज देता है, आपके पास बीए है, बीएससी है, आपके पास रिसर्च की चीजें हैं। लेकिन हमको अगर हम किसी एक विषय में, अगर हम किसी एक क्षेत्र में अपने आप को फोकस करना चाहते हैं, तो हमको थोड़ा उस प्रकार का जो करिकुलम है, उस प्रकार की चीजें हैं, उसमें भी हमें बात करनी पड़ेगी। और इसी के लिए नई एजुकेशन पॉलिसी व्यवस्था करती है रिसर्च इंटेंसिव यूनिवर्सिटीज की, टीचिंग इंटेंसिव यूनिवर्सिटीज की। अब इसके बाद सबसे जो महत्वपूर्ण चीज है वो होती है कि जब कोई शिक्षक पढ़ाता है, तब उसका जो मस्तिष्क होता है उसमें विभिन्न तरह की बातें चलती हैं। वह कैसे पढ़ाए वो उस पर डिपेंड करता है, लेकिन उसको फॉलो करना पड़ता है एक बहुत ज्यादा ही रिजिड करिकुलम, जो कि बोर्ड या फिर एजुकेशनल जो उसकी कमीशन होता है वो डिसाइड करता है। और नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी बात करती है कि जो फैकल्टी है वो खुद का करिकुलम अपने हिसाब से डिजाइन कर पाए। Okay, so I need to wrap up now. Okay, just 10 seconds more. तो नई जो नवीन जो राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 है, इसमें जो पूरी तरह से ध्यान रखा गया है कि जो कॉलेज के छात्र हैं उनको जितनी भी कमियां, जो कठिनाइयां महसूस होती थी, वो पूरी तरह से उसको भर दिया जाए। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Raghav. And yes, it is true. The new education policy is progressive in its outlook, with an emphasis on multidisciplinary education system. So now, the next participant I would like to call is Khushi Bhatia.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, you are audible.
One second. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. सदन में सभी उपस्थित जनों का नमस्कार। मैं खुशी भाटिया चुने गए विषय आत्मनिर्भर भारत पर अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करने जा रही हूँ। महोदय, सबसे पहले जानने की जरूरत यह है कि आत्मनिर्भर शब्द का अर्थ क्या है। आत्मनिर्भर यानी खुद को इतना सक्षम बना लेना कि हम दूसरों पर आश्रित ना रहें। आत्मनिर्भर होना हर व्यक्ति, समाज और राष्ट्र का स्वप्न होता है। हमारी भूतपूर्व प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमती इंदिरा गांधी ने भी कहा था कि एक राष्ट्र की शक्ति उसकी आत्मनिर्भरता में है और दूसरों से उधार लेकर काम चलाने में नहीं। इस स्वप्न को पूर्ण करने के लिए तथा भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था को इस कोरोना महामारी की मार से उभारने के लिए 12 मई 2020 को हमारे प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान को प्रस्तुत किया, जिसके अंतर्गत 20 लाख करोड़ रुपए की राहत पैकेज देने की घोषणा भी की गई, जिसमें भूमि, श्रम, नकद एवं कानून को सुधारने की बात की गई। यदि भारत के संसाधनों को देखा जाए तो भारत शुरू से ही एक समृद्ध देश रहा है। यहां तक कि इस कोरोना महामारी में भी हमारे देश ने किसी और देश से मदद नहीं ली। ये क्या दर्शाता है? ये दर्शाता है कि हमारा देश कितना सक्षम है। इस अभियान की बात की जाए तो ये अभियान देश में 2 चरणों से किया जा रहा है। पहले चरण में हार्डवेयर, प्लास्टिक और खिलौनों जैसे डिवीजनों की बात की जाती है, उस पर विचार विमर्श किया जाता है, और दूसरे चरण में मोती और रत्न, फार्मा और स्टील जैसे वस्तुओं पर विचार होगा। किसान, गरीब नागरिक, लघु उद्योग, कुटीर उद्योग, पशुपालक, मछुआरे इत्यादि जैसे संगठित एवं असंगठित क्षेत्र में काम करने वाले लोगों को इस नीति का पूर्ण रूप से लाभ मिलेगा। यदि बात की जाए कि आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था को कैसे मजबूत करेगा, तो इसके लिए सरकार द्वारा कई योजनाएं भी बनाई गई हैं। जैसे नए उद्योग स्थितियों को लाया जा रहा है, कारखानों में नई तकनीकों के साथ साथ नई मशीनों को भी उपयोग में लाया गया है, सुई से लेकर प्लेन तक के उत्पादन की योजना भी बनाई जा रही है। सबसे विशेष बात तो यह है कि जिन लोगों को तालाबंदी का नुकसान हुआ है, जैसे कि किसान, श्रमिक, व्यापारी, सभी को पूरा मुआवजा एवं लाभ दिया जाएगा ताकि उनका स्तर सामान्य हो सके। आत्मनिर्भर भारत का अर्थ महोदय ये नहीं है कि चीन या किसी अन्य देश से कोई सामान न लिया जाए। इसका अर्थ यह है कि भारत को इतना सक्षम बना दिया जाए कि लोग विदेशी माल को ना अपनाकर स्वदेशी माल को अपनाएं। क्योंकि कहा गया है कि जबरदस्ती कराया गया काम कुछ वर्ष तो अच्छा लगता है, किंतु स्वेच्छा से किया गया काम उम्र भर। धन्यवाद।
Thank you. Now next, one notice. Please see in the camera and don't read and allocate yourself. Next participant, Ritik Saw.
जी, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है? हेलो।
हाँ, you are audible.
जी, तो मुझे नेटवर्क का बहुत प्रॉब्लम था, तो क्या आप मुझे माफी चाहूंगा, मुझे बता सकती हैं 1 मिनट में कि जो समय है आप किस में बेल बजाएंगी ताकि मुझे पता चल जाए।
Time 4 minutes max to max. You can go till 4:30 seconds.
ओके, तो मैं बस 1 मिनट
And
का समय
you
चाहूंगा।
should. Huh?
मैं बस 1 मिनट का समय चाहूंगा, मैं शुरू करता हूँ।
Okay.
जी, तो मैं शुरू करूं?
Can you try to keep your camera on?
जी जरूर। मैं दिख रहा हूं सभी को?
हाँ।
Okay, so I am starting. Challenges and opportunities go hand to hand. When I say challenge, I mean something new and difficult that forces you to put effort. And when I say opportunity, I mean a good and a favorable chance for advancement and progress. Now let us go smoothly and make you all very clear about what are the challenges and opportunities that India is going to face in 2021. I'll discuss the challenges from 3 basic perspectives, and all those 3 perspectives are internationally, nationally, and economically. If I look from global perspective, one of the major challenge that India would be countering China. And to counter China, India need a stringent strategic plans. And to also counter China, India will be needing a continuing support from US, Japan, Australia, and several other European countries such as France, Germany, and UK. India would also need to put efforts on the issues which it has been ignoring from since many a times, from like the issues like Tibet to Taiwan, from Iran-Saudi Arabia rivalry to the refugee issues coming out from Myanmar and Bangladesh. Looking from national perspective, India is a country which is widely famous for its agriculture throughout the world. But the sad plight of our country is that we are still not able to give farmers their protection, farmers their security. In the last 2 years, we have been seeing that there are major issues which are considering the India, it's avoiding its growth, such as unemployment, fostering better infrastructure, and fighting against health issues. Also, poverty and pollution would be some of the major pan-India challenges. Economically, if I talk, then India needs to put attention for socio-economic discussions, socio-economic inclusion of rural India in order to strengthen itself. While incomes may have begun to rise in rural area, but commensurate growth of productivity has suddenly stopped. Unless the urban-rural divides are reduced, but now I am very sure that critical imperative, not only for the government, which serves it as an important part, but it will lead business which are looking for new opportunities and new growth in India. But when I discuss about the opportunities that India would be having, one of the major opportunities out of those are information technology. When I say information technology, the IT sector have been India's sunshine sector for quite some time now. The industry has contributed a lot to India's GDP and India's growth. When I say slow developing economy, it can be the major global player through the development of information technology. I mean to say, according to the IBF figures, India will be one of the major super global power in terms of information technology. When I say healthcare, there are clear indications that healthcare is going to be a major sector that stimulates economic growth and contribute to employment. Now we could see as the under the Atmanirbhar policy, India is serving the economic packages and vaccinations around the whole world, including its own country. Over 40 million new jobs are expected to be generated by 2021. As per report titled India's New Opportunities 2020 by the All India Management Association Boston Consulting Group and the Confederation of Indian Industries, the healthcare industry is going to be the next golden sector. When I say infrastructure, I mean India's infrastructure growth has been exponential over the past few decades. Today, we are the fourth largest and probably the second fastest growing economy, with infrastructure being one of the major concerns for India's growth. Infrastructure industry in India is highly fragmented and hence difficult to judge its exact size. But to counter this, government is trying to bring the new policies which could foster the economic growth as well as the infrastructure growth of India. When I say the last and not the least, but the telecom sector, India's telecom story is only getting better by the time and by the place. According to Zinnov estimates, India already has nearly 600 million users of mobile phones and subscribers. With a 15% smartphone penetration, all these points generate and all these points has a penetration that is fueling the growth of enterprise mobility in India, which will lead to significant economic development. With these, I would time कितना बचा हुआ है?
Last 30 seconds, you may conclude.
Okay. With these, I would like to end my point, and I would like to say at the end that India's opportunities and challenges are very, very productive, and this. Sorry. मैंने समय पूछ लिया तो मैं खुद ही interrupt हो गया. There are many challenges and opportunities that India would be facing in 2021, but we need to come together and united to make our country more stronger and in the better and get it a global image throughout the countries. धन्यवाद.
Yes, true. In challenges, the comeback is always greater than the setback. With this, I would like to call our next participant, Swati Kumari.
Ma'am, am I audible and visible to you?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So has my time been started?
Yes.
Okay, I will go in 3, 2, 1. So today I will talk about the national education policy through the lens of our college students. So first of all, I would focus on the provisions, the implications, and then what can be the solutions. Number one, it has come with a 4-year undergraduate program. So it is a 4-year undergraduate program. So we need to focus on the fact that the ground reality for today's India is that there are many middle class and lower class students lower income group students who are studying in universities. They need to go. The main thing which comes in our mind is that we have to make our parents away from the burden of educating us. This happens in India because India is not a country of very poor people, but this has not been answered by this particular policy. Rather, what you say as the length of education has been extended. I support that, but the fact is that there are no jobs, and this has led to much delayed jobs, which can be a repercussion. We can say that which can be a repercussion because it hasn't been implemented yet. This is one thing. Well, here I don't impart that education should be based only on job, but job is the necessity and demand. The focus should have been over there. For this, they can provide the internship in BA courses as well, which they are aiming to. And next thing I would like to say is that the focus has been on quantity, and quality has not been considered. So even if it is a 3-year or 4-year course, that doesn't matter. The benefit has been deemed. So the policy should have focused on the quality which is being imparted now also, and it has to some extent did it, because there is a provision of research and it has been extended, which is a good thing. But at the same time, more needs to be done. Now, one of the social approaches is that the BA courses have also been for 4 years. What happens is that in many states which are illiterate and which are backward, like Odisha, Jharkhand, Bihar, there is no support for a student who wants to do BA, but it is in Delhi and in big metropolitan cities. So there what happens is that when you go for BA, the parents, they expect you to come with a job, but that 3-year course of BA doesn't offer you job, but a BTech course of 4 years offer you a job immediately. So this has not been the this approach is not being considered in this policy, which can lead to a repercussions with more students dropping out of BA and not BTech. Now again, one of the positive impacts is that it has led to the integration of STEM with humanities, that is the multidisciplinary stream, which is really good and which was needed, because it really becomes mundane and we call it that we are focusing on one point, but actually we are not focusing on one subject. It is becoming mundane for the students to open up their thinking level. And in our constitution also, it has been told that we must have a scientific approach towards everything, and this is a provision which will go for it. Now, one of the other thing is that we will have an affiliation with the foreign universities. Yes, that is very good. And for that, scholarships will also be provided with a bank of credit, this kind of system, and that is really supported and which was need of the hour. Now, the institutional autonomy will be provided, and that is really good. Plus, private and public partnership will be done, which is really needed, because we see that there are many private colleges which are in a competition with many public colleges, but only in a limited area. We need to look India as a whole and not as a division of this college over here, which is a public college, but it is good, and this is a college in another state which is a private college which is good. So this can lead, this will lead to less of disparity and more of unity and uniformity in this system. Another thing I would like to focus upon is that there has been no provision for moral education in universities, and no sex education as well, which needed to be done. Being a college student, we expected, these are the expectations which college students have for them, and this should have been done, and it is the need of the hour to educate people at that level also of these things. Now, one of the implications can be that the students in college, they are not aware of their mother tongue, because till standard 12 they didn't study in it, and even in till standard 3 they didn't study it. But now till standard 5, the coming generation, they can study in the mother tongue. So this can lead to a divide, that one of the generation is able to, that generation X is able to not able to speak in the mother tongue, but other generation is able to speak in mother tongue. It can lead to a generation gap within a generation as well. The time is over?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to conclude by saying that a new national education policy has come with a new provision, but it is not the responsibility of only this policy to impart education, rather the entire society, and hence Wi-Fi facilities, library facilities, and the books and research facilities should be provided with a socialistic and welfare approach to the students, which to some extent has been done, but which can be done further. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. And with this, I would like to call our next participant, Aradhya Sharma.
So am I able to you?
Yes.
तो सबसे
You can start now.
सबसे पहले आप सभी को मेरा नमस्कार। मेरा नाम है आराध्या शर्मा और आज मेरे दिए गए विषय आत्मनिर्भर भारत की ओर पर अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करना चाहूंगी। देखिए, 12 मई 2020 को भारत के प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने आत्मनिर्भर भारत का वर्णन किया। हम सब जानते हैं कि आत्मनिर्भरता हमारे लिए कोई नया विषय नहीं है। 1960 व 1970 की नीतियों में भी आत्मनिर्भरता का वर्णन मिलता है, परंतु आज आत्मनिर्भरता के मायने बदल चुके हैं। आज आत्मनिर्भरता का मतलब खुद को बाकी देशों से अलग करना या संरक्षणवादी नीतियों को अपनाना नहीं है, बल्कि आज आत्मनिर्भरता का मतलब है अपने देश में दक्षता को बढ़ाना। आज आत्मनिर्भरता के अंतर्गत हम उन नीतियों को अपनाएंगे जिनसे भारत देश में नए विचार, नए व्यापार व निवेश के उत्कृष्ट आयाम खुलेंगे। देखिए, भारत में आत्मनिर्भरता के मुख्यतः 5 स्तंभ हैं। सबसे पहला स्तंभ है अर्थव्यवस्था का। सांकेतिक घरेलू उत्पाद के आधार पर पूरे विश्व में भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था 5वीं सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था है, परंतु महामारी के कारण हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था की बहुत हानि हुई है, बेरोजगारी की समस्या और उग्र रूप ले चुकी है। इसलिए हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था को आवश्यकता है एक प्रगतिशील उछाल की, केवल परिवर्तन पर्याप्त नहीं होगा। दूसरा मुख्य स्तंभ है भारत में आधारभूत संरचना यानी कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का। भारत में यातायात व्यवस्था का विस्तार व फैलाव दिन प्रतिदिन बढ़ रहा है, परंतु केवल फैलाव ही पर्याप्त नहीं है। हमें आवश्यकता है कि हमारा यातायात व्यवस्था सक्षम व किफायती भी हो। इसलिए हम केवल पेट्रोल या डीजल पर निर्भर नहीं हो सकते। हमें चाहिए कि हम नए ऊर्जा के क्षेत्रों में निवेश करें। सौर ऊर्जा के क्षेत्र में भारत ने कई मानक स्थापित किए हैं और ये प्रशंसनीय है, परंतु अभी भी जल विद्युत के क्षेत्र में और पवन ऊर्जा के क्षेत्र में हमें और प्रयास करने की आवश्यकता है, तब जाकर भारत आत्मनिर्भर बन पाएगा। तीसरा मुख्य स्तंभ है प्रौद्योगिकी संचालित व्यवस्था का यानी कि टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन सिस्टम। आज हम देखते हैं हमारी शिक्षा प्रणाली, हमारी स्वास्थ्य सेवाएं, बस व्यापार, सबका सब काम प्रौद्योगिकी पर निर्भर करता है। अनुसंधान व आविष्कार करने में समर्थ जनशक्ति तो है हमारे पास, परंतु समय आने पर वो पलायन कर जाते हैं क्योंकि भारत में उनके लिए आयाम नहीं है। इसलिए हमें चाहिए कि हम भारत में उनके लिए आयाम उत्पन्न करवाएं ताकि वो भारत में रहकर ही भारत को आत्मनिर्भर बना पाए और अपना योगदान दे पाए इस मुहिम में। चौथा मुख्य स्तंभ है भारत में जीवंत जनसांख्यिकी का यानी कि वाइब्रेंट डेमोग्राफी का। भारत की जनसंख्या पूरे विश्व में दूसरी सबसे बड़ी जनसंख्या है। ये जनसंख्या हमारे लिए जनशक्ति है, परंतु आवश्यकता है इस जनशक्ति का स्वस्थ व शिक्षित होना। महामारी के कारण हमारी शिक्षा सेवाएं व स्वास्थ्य सेवाओं की कमियां हमारे समक्ष आए। इसलिए हमें चाहिए कि इन सब में हम निवेश करें, इनका विस्तार बढ़ाएं और जितनी भी खामियां हैं हम उन्हें निकाल फेंकें। भारत की जनसंख्या के अनुसार हमारी स्वास्थ्य सेवाएं व शिक्षा सेवाएं पर्याप्त नहीं, इसलिए हमें चाहिए कि हम इनको और बढ़ाएं, इनमें निवेश करें। पांचवा मुख्य स्तंभ है मांग व आपूर्ति श्रृंखला का यानी कि डिमांड एंड सप्लाई चेन। किसी भी अर्थव्यवस्था के लिए आवश्यक है कि इसका संतुलन बनाए रखा जाए। भारत में जिन चीजों की मांग ज्यादा है, या तो हम उनके उत्पादन को बढ़ाएं या तो उनका विकल्प ढूंढने का प्रयास करें, जबकि दूसरी ओर जिन चीजों का उत्पादन पहले से ही ज्यादा हो रहा है हम उनके भंडारण की व्यवस्था उपलब्ध कराएं ताकि समय आने पर हम अतिरिक्त पदार्थ को निर्यात करें और लाभ कमा पाएं। इन पांचों स्तंभों के आधार पर हम ये तो नहीं कह सकते कि भारत अभी के समय में आत्मनिर्भर है, परंतु हाँ, हम ये कह सकते हैं कि भारत आत्मनिर्भर बनने की प्रक्रिया में है। भारत इस प्रक्रिया में सफल भी होगा और उस उद्देश्य को प्राप्त भी कर पाएगा, परंतु हमें ये चीज ध्यान में रखनी है कि जो गलतियां हमने पहले की हम उन्हें दोबारा ना दोहराएं। भारत को ये ध्यान रखना होगा कि वह संरक्षणवादी नीतियों को ना अपनाए, बल्कि सशक्तिकरण व सुधार की नीतियों को अपनाए ताकि वह आत्मनिर्भर बन पाए। यदि संरक्षणवादी नीतियों को अपनाना है भी तो वह समय सीमित संरक्षण ही हो। कहने में जितना आसान है करने में उतना ही मुश्किल, परंतु हाँ, अथक प्रयास और पूर्ण विश्वास के साथ ये करना संभव है। हम सब चाहते हैं कि भारत आत्मनिर्भर बने और मैं चाहती हूँ कि हम सब इस प्रक्रिया में, इस मुहिम में अपना योगदान दें। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू आराध्या। क्या सफलता पाएगा वो जो निर्भर रहता गैरों पर? मंजिल तो उसके कदमों में है जो चलता है अपने पैरों पर। Really, it was really nice listening you all. Now I would like our judge, Miss Mickey Bora, to speak 2 words of inspiration to all.
Just a minute, I'll switch on the lights.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I would, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, first of all, I would really like to congratulate each one of you for participating in this elocution competition on the eve of Republic Day, 72nd Republic Day. It was very nice listening to your new thoughts, your ideas, and how you have studied the national education policy with so much insights, and you have thrown your perspective on it. That is really very nice to hear from you and enlightening for me as well. I would appreciate the fact that you all have taken that into consideration for your own development and for your own progress, because you have also shown some methods in which we can further our growth by taking all those highlighting about STEM and all. So that was really a good thing that you have researched upon. So it was a very good attempt by each one of you. But what I would like to say is that in a elocution, when I say it is something, it is a very expressive speech, because here you have your pronunciation is very distinct and it is very articulate. There are certain points which are very important, like the articulation, that is clearly speaking each and every word. When we are given a time slot of 10 minutes, maybe we shouldn't think about the time. It is about the articulation of the words. Then about the intonation, that is intonating, the highs and the lows of your speech, that is very important. The accent, the emphasis. Maybe you could start off slowly. You could start off very slowly, but then you gradually try to inflect, try to increase your volume. That way you have to make an impact, because it is about emphasis. It is about the impact, which is very important. And so your tone, your pitch, that is also going to differ a lot, because it cannot be on the same pitch all the time. It has to be the ups and downs, which has to reflect. Then second important point is, apart from the voice modulation, is the gesture. The gesture is very important, where you should think that the online medium and the offline medium is both the same. And how would you do in an online medium, in an offline medium, would be the applicable in the offline medium also. So we have to take care that we are seen, we are looking at the camera, and also we are smiling, and we are engaging with someone as of the real audience. So I saw that most of you have got very good marks in the subject matter. In your thoughts, you have organized the thoughts very well. Voice modulation was one thing which was missing, I felt, a few of the places. And then gestures, because we thought that it's an online medium, okay, it is an MS Team, so maybe we can compromise with our gestures. No, we have to use our hands, we have to look at the camera and be expressive. So that is very important in that. So I think you all understood, the audience has understood. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and in Vidyalankar, there was one elocution competition for teachers, and I was so excited and I participated, and I got the prize somehow. I was lucky to get the prize. But then the most important thing is we getting involved in that elocution, that should come from within. That is very important. And we should begin on a low scale. That is important. Begin on a low scale and then gradually scale it up. Build up the momentum, and last May it is like a movie, like climax, like that. And then when you conclude, again come down. So that way, that momentum is built up and everybody gets excited. You understood? Right at the beginning, we will not have the same voice. The volume will be a bit less, emphasis will be a bit less. Gradually we will increase, and the climax will come just before we end. Okay, and the conclusion will be a very subtle conclusion, giving the impact of climax se ekdam niche aa gaya with a flat conclusion. So that is the way how we end, and that makes up the suspense. Elocution is suspense, like Martin Luther and all those people, how they had told the speeches, that is way. But students, really hats off to you. It's very good. Let us clap for them, all of us. Shall we?
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. Very good. NSS has done a very good job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and thank you to all the participants for making this event a success. And thank you to NSS for inviting me as a judge. Thank you, Vaibhavi, and thank you, Priyanka, for inviting me to this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for coming. It was a great honor.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inspirational words. Your presence really mattered, and you motivated all the participants and your guidance will surely help a participant in future. So we gladly thank you for being a part with us. I would like to tell all the participants the result. It was a tough fight and you all did well. The result will be declared tonight or tomorrow in a WhatsApp group, as it's very hard for us to declare it now. So do not leave the WhatsApp group, and your names will also be declared in our Insta handles. So thank you.
Can we leave the meet now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Thank you, Vaibhavi. Thank you, everyone. Shall I leave the meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And the participants, let me tell you all that you will be getting the certificates for both participation as well as for winning. So stay in the WhatsApp group. Do not leave it. And the results will be announced soon. Thank you for coming.